Hey, everybody. I would like to welcome you to our Counterpoise podcast. I'm one of your co hosts. I go by the name of Samantha Adams. I'm joined by my other two co hosts. You guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Malik Foster, another co-host for the Counterpoise podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
And I am Everett Stevenson, your third co-host from Counterpoise podcast. And I want to definitely get into welcome you guys to the show and let you know that we have a pretty interesting topic today. Recently we saw a clip of the celebrity 50 Cent's son stating how he felt though he didn't feel like the child support that was given to him was enough, I guess, based off of maybe father's earnings or for him to have a quality of life that he felt like he should have received.
So I'm not really sure what happened to E.
I think
he froze.
Issues.
Yeah, he's been having technical issues all day.
I do want to add on real quick, Sam, that one of the reasons why he felt like $6,700 wasn't enough is because.
Hello? Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, we can. You froze up for a second.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. They were saying he received $6,700.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you continue. Go ahead.
Oh, pardon me. Yeah, the $6,700 a month and how that wasn't enough for like living expenses in particular, like along the way, like the neighborhood that he was living in, due to some of his father's concerns or beefs, rather. I think he called it disagreements with others, and that it wasn't enough for a quality of life in New York, pretty much. And mind you, that came out to be somewhere around, I think, $80,000 a year that they was receiving. And it brought us to think at the topic, at what point do you think as an individual, you have to take responsibility for your life? You know what I mean? Because I think that was the bigger issue. Most understanding that $6,700 a month, in addition to anything else that you supplement that with, would be enough to help, individual person, let alone a child, be able to have a quality of life, considering, what many have to make with and deal with what they receive. So that was basically one of the things that we wanted to talk about, and it brought us into a broader discussion into some other issues that we'll discuss here shortly.
Yeah. So
anybody want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, what we're talking about here is the personal accountability, and we're kind of using the situation with 50 Cent's son and 50 Cent to kind of highlight some of the issues that, young adults have today, specifically, because a lot of young adults feel a sense of entitlement. Maybe their age and experience plays a role as well in that entitlement, because nowadays we have social media, we have easier access to people in terms of travel and all of that stuff and communications, right? You can get that instant feedback, so people want that instant gratification. We live in a microwave society. So that is something that's going on with a lot of people that I noticed, typically 30 years and under, like under that age group, typically have this problem in my personal experience. But I just wanted to kind of say that to just, go over it a little bit. You want to jump in here, Sam? I know you kind of want to say
something. So I absolutely want to jump in. So it was in a interview. It was Marquise, I think is his name.
Yep.
And for those of y'all who are old enough to remember when 50 Cent first came out, one of his first singles was Wanksta, right? And Marquise is the little boy playing with the Ja Rule doll. And so now here we are all these years later. Marquise is 25 years old. Okay, let's make sure we make that clear. He's 25 years old. He's not 15. He's 25. And he he didn't say it as if he was just mentioning it in passing, right? He said it as if it was a problem. Like, how you gonna have us living off no, I'm sorry. How's my child support only $6,700 a month? And number one, this is as 50 is on the rise. Number two, this is also, mind you, let's just be clear. 50 Cent's first album went diamond, right? Get Rich or Die Trying went diamond. And because as soon as he kicked the door down. And so he hasn't stopped since. And then he did that deal with Vitamin Water and he made more money than he ever made in his life. And so, I think the expectation was that they would get more money. But the thing about it is, there's fathers out here that only got to pay a couple $100 a month for child support, right? And I get it; it's $80,000, a little over $80,000 a year in child support. That is a decent salary today, right? During inflation, and I get the fact that they're living in New York, and he also tried to make the argument that, because his father had lived a certain type of lifestyle and because people had tried to kill him and all that, they had to live a particular type of way in particular types of spaces. But the thing about it is, like I said, he's 25. He's not a little boy. Like, get a job. I'm not trying to be mean. I get it. In some states, it's like, okay, you pay child support up until the age of 25 if they go to college or something like that. But why are you complaining about getting $6,700 a month as if that's not a lot? I don't get it. I don't.
Yeah, I want to say that this actually turns on the responsibility of both parents. Like during the interview, they were mentioning like, okay, what's your mom doing? Like he didn't really clearly say that. All he said was like, oh, she's watching me and she's taking care of me, which kind of leads me to believe like these are some of her talking points being reflected through Marquise, because obviously 50 Cent did raise him, and 50 Cent made a comment in his response video that, if he was with me, he would have had 500,000 a year. But, his mother was being, I guess, difficult. He didn't say that, but he was saying like, she wanted more money, and that's what was settled upon, the $6,700 a month. And he's 25 years old crying over spilled milk, right? So this also goes to another issue, particularly with men, like, hey, you got to earn your value, even though your father or a family member has a certain status. You can use that status to help you get ahead in life, help things be easier for you in life. But at the end of the day, you still have to earn your value and earn your respect. Like, it's not just given to you. So this is sort of where I know we're going to talk about a little later, a little bit more of the entitlement, but I definitely wanted to mention the fact that 50 Cent said that in response to what Marquise was saying, that the $6,700 a month isn't enough, and that due to the fact that his mom was physically there, present, emotionally, she was watching him. But the guy who was interviewing him said, "Hey, she could have got a nanny, $6,700 a month. Like, she's supposed to contribute too. She's a parent. She could get a job, and even if she gets like a little low end job, only making like $40,000 a month. $40,000 a year. That, to combine with what 50 Cent was providing, that would have been well over 120 something thousand a year together." And that could have been a decent lifestyle, even in New York during that time. Like, you could survive. But his thing was, oh, I could survive off that, but I needed a certain lifestyle. I needed to live a certain place, certain like this. He just sounds like a entitled brat. That's how he was coming off, based off of what he was saying, like, oh, that's not enough. I need more. And he's saying all of this at the age of 25 years old. Like, he's too old to be saying this. It's like, it happened. So, do y'all guys have any thoughts about that? The upbringing part for him?
I do.
Hold on. Let me jump in here. Y'all been going back and forth for a minute. So yeah, I definitely agree. When we look at this real quick, you know what I mean? One of the things that we were going to discuss as well is that, like, that I look at, when do you, like, some people say jump off the porch. When do you ascend to manhood? Be what they consider your bar mitzvah. It could be your baptism when you know what I mean, if you live a spiritual lifestyle. But whenever you decide to devote yourself into living like we'll say a man considering this situation, but sometimes you could just have to say being an adult. You start to learn when you have to break from maybe habits that you've seen or that may have been taught to you, and to learn which ones that you want to adapt for yourself. And that's a tough task for people to kind of learn at any point in life. No matter, that's why they say there's old fools, because there's some people that just won't change or don't want to commit to making changes, even for the better. So I think like we need to look at a couple of things, and you guys mentioned it. I think the age was one factor. You guys said again he's 25. Age is a factor, and we also talked about experiences. And I think sometimes when you may not have, like a lot of people were discussing, 67 coming in, 6,700 a month coming in. So you may not have learned how to be able to manage, to your point as well, Malik, the 6,700 a month, to learn maybe where that money would be well spent and how, you know what I'm saying, you can use that to operate and allow, Marquise to have a cushion, which probably wouldn't even be 6,700. Let's imagine if you just put some of that money just up to, one, give him an opportunity so when he hits 18, 19, he has some money to chase his passions or something. And two, allow him to be able to, or pursue educational things if that's what he wants. But I think either one of those situations are things that could have happened on both sides. But from 50% standpoint, he's done all that he could do as far as providing the opportunities for provisions to be made. And so Marquise, not being willing to take responsibility for that, I think that ultimately is his walk. He's going to have to figure out when, you know what I'm saying, he needs to do what he needs to do and realize that, one, he had a opportunity. And even if it wasn't something that he may have managed the way that he is, because we be quite real, we've all gotten to a place sometimes where we realize, okay, something that we've seen isn't something that we want to repeat. And that's whether it's in the house or outside in life, so you have to kind of learn to break away from it. And I think that's what you said too earlier, like the way that people may have been trained or the way that people may have been, thinking based off of life or thinking based off of, what's being said in their home on a day-to-day basis that can make them feel, entitled or make them feel like they're not getting the things that they should be getting based off of how they may see somebody else live. So I think some of his experience, maybe being able to be around other good people, good men, to teach him some things, him even learning from his father, things about manhood that his father may have did, even if they are walking different lives, there's some lessons that's universal. And I think, he would be good to learn which ones that his fathers has in his teaching and apply that, as well as maybe some of the ones that his mother had that were good teachings and apply that. But unfortunately, right now, we're looking at him, making excuses, if you will, because he's alive and he made it to this age. So he has a life and breath to do something. So why sit there and choose to talk about what you couldn't have done or what it should have been instead of what you can do? And I'm sure that probably would be a different conversation for him and his dad to open up doors for him, possibly.
So it's okay. So there's a few things that I want to say. Number one, when you're talking about Asian experience, right? It's one thing if you have a child who is taking on the attitudes of a parent that they have more contact and exposure to, because children are impressionable, right? And so if you have a mom who doesn't want the kid to see her father, is constantly bashing him, talking bad about him, there's a good chance that the kid is going to start to have those same or similar type of feelings towards that father, right? And you see that happen all the time. But also, too, let's just be clear. Child support's a thing, not because it's just a way for women to, exhibit resentment, because he doesn't want to be with her no more. Child support exists because there are actually men out there that don't take care of their kids. You know what I'm saying? And so, and the government has to step in to force them to take care of their children.
That's not true, Sam.
Hold on.
I'm just saying.
Let me finish.
Can't
So
let you
that's
get
the
away with
purpose. That's the purpose of child support. I'm not saying that that's how everybody uses it, but that is the purpose, because the government has to step in, because there are some fathers that will not take care of their children, but for the fact of child support. That is a fact.
There's some mothers too.
And I think to that point, I think there's some parents would be a better way for us to help you address that.
Guys, it's my turn to talk.
Yeah, it is your turn to talk.
Yep. But
I'm just telling you what you said.
Just let me, please.
You said,
let me, please.
You said what child
Let me finish my point, please.
I don't know if you heard it, but go ahead.
Let me finish my point, please. I'm like going somewhere. You gotta let me finish, okay? So that's one of the reasons why child support exists, right? It also exists because there are mothers that don't take care of their children, and fathers are responsible for their children. So the government has to step in to ensure that a child is financially cared for. And so it's sad because that's the truth of it all. Now, the balancing test comes from trying to figure out whether or not that parent can actually afford to take care of that child and take care of themselves, along with however many other children they may or may not, they may have, right? And so with that being said, right, that's the purpose of child support. They look at income, they look at, all of these different things. And so in looking at all of these different things, when the courts make these decisions, they make these decisions based on the father's ability to pay and the need of the child, or the mother's ability to pay and the need of the child. More often, it's a father. Fathers are most often put on child support than mothers. That is also a fact, okay? And so with that being said, when you're talking about things like age and experience, right? The experience of a child, which is something that we haven't really addressed. The issue also comes from, you see a lot of women, you don't really see men do it too much, but you do see a lot of women do it when it comes to putting a father on child support. A lot of times you see them do it because they feel as though that man is not spending enough quality time with the child, and they're not helping to raise the child. So they feel as though, hey, I got to get in where I fit in. Some of them do it to use it as a weapon. I'm not referring to the people that use child support as a weapon. I'm referring to people that use child support for the purpose that it was created, right? And so when you have an absent parent, and that child is growing up without that parent, that has an impact and effect on that child. And a lot of times when people look at the fact that they have to pay child support, they're looking at the dollar and not the kid. And that right there is where it can become an issue. That's where it can become problematic. Now, in the instance of 50 Cent, and Marquise, I'm sure 50 was absent, but not absent in the sense where he didn't want anything to do with his kid, or he just was chumping him off or stringing him along or any of that. I'm sure it was because he was out there doing his thing for his son, as opposed to, for just himself. He had opportunities to have his son with him more often, but him and his baby mama wasn't good. So because they wasn't good, these are the kinds of consequences. There's oftentimes that people will take their baby mama or their baby daddy to court to get higher child support, and the court will look at it and be like, you getting less, right? You are already getting too much. So you probably should have even bothered coming over here, right? And then they get screwed. That happens all the time also. These are some of the types of experiences. And now when you're dealing with somebody who's a parent, like Malik referred to, that may make a little bit of money, they're like living off the child support. The purpose of child support is not to live off of it. It is to support a child. And I think that a lot of times people fall short of that. They use that money for things that it's not supposed to be used for. Use it to, I can get it. I get it if you put it towards something like rent and your kid lives there, right? That helps support the child. I get it if you're using it towards clothes and food and and things like that. Cool. But if you using it and you going to put, go get your hair done and going shopping for yourself with that money, that's a problem because you're abusing it, and the thing about the 50 Cent and some Marquise, like Marquise's argument was because 50 Cent, because his life was ultimately in danger, probably because he'd been shot a few times and he's got beef with this one and that one, and also too because he got money, so he's got haters and he's got all of that. They had to live a certain kind of way. Okay, he's giving you $80,000 a year at a time when $80,000 a year was worth way more than what it is today, right? And moms can go get a job. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be any of that. She could have went and got a job. And I don't know if she did. And if the issue that Marquise really has is just the fact that his father wasn't physically there, he needs to say that. It doesn't need to be all of this. Oh, we was only getting $67,000. Friggin', what is it, like 6-7 years after you come of age? Sir, you sound crazy. You sound crazy right now. Because you're complaining about $67,000 at the age of 25 when your child support ended at 18. Like, why are you still walking around carrying that, thinking about it, talking about it? That's ridiculous. You let that bird fly. So, when you're talking about age and experience, that's really what I'm thinking, where I was going with it. And as far as like upbringing, like you said, Malik, I agree with you. It's also too how, well, you both said it, how that person, the parent is, what the things that they're saying, because some kids don't have their own mind, I mean, that's the thing about being impressionable. You're going to listen to what your mom or your father has to say to you, the things that they teach you and the lessons that they learn. That's why it's important to breathe life into your kids and speak positivity. You can let your kids figure out, like you said, E, where they stand in that situation on their own. You just got to support them through it, because those situations can, in fact, get very tough. And having proper role models and mentors, maybe it's a teacher, maybe they're in a program, just having positive influences around them will help them to be able to make the right decisions based on the relationships that they have with their parents, despite if their parents are going through it or not, despite if there's issues with child support or not. But Marquise gotta relax. He's wilding, getting on the TV complaining about some $6,700 when there's people that only get $200-$300 a month for a kid. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I was gonna go with that and say too. Like, I just agree. Like, I think child support in general should be something that is brought into a household to help the enrichment of that child. And I think that falls on both parents. While I do understand there's some situations in which it could just be convenient, you are living together, y'all have an agreement that, hey, I'm gonna do this and you do that. I think that's when that situation will look a little bit different because, knowing what he does and who he is and what he has, he could probably afford them a different lifestyle than it would have been, with just based off of a monetary amount that they had to just manage on their own. And so that when we get into that point, I think that's when we get to look at it like and say again, that's where, parenting needs to be better on both sides of the board, mainly on her side of the board in that regard. But like you said, a lot of times people feel like too, the trade-off can be the money, like because I might not necessarily have the time, I'll choose to put you in position around certain things so that you can learn the skill sets that you may need to learn. And then also they need it when they do have the time. That's the time that I think that they'll try to, put in those morals. But like someone says, as a kid, there's nothing replaceable about that time of having your parent be there. No matter, even if you have the best programs and you go to the best training and everything like that, you still might want to know that, hey, even within all of that, I still have a parent that's there for me as well, that supports me. That's, what I'm saying, in my ear, that's telling me, those things that you want to hear. Because, you just want to feel love like that. So I'll never say that, money should replace time. or time spent and experiences gained with a parent and the child. But I do understand that it definitely helps surplus and makes their lives a little bit better and gives them more options. And I think, anytime in life when, that child has those type of advantages in life that, they're generally able to make it to become successful individuals.
Yeah. So I wanted to say something about the child support aspect. So child support is supposed to be what it is to help support the child when there's not a two-parent household here in the United States, right? If there's not a two-parent household cohesive unit, then another parent is not out, or maybe one of the parents broke up with each other. There's some sort of disagreement or conflict between the parents. Therefore, one parent's not in the house and the other parent's in the house day to day with the child, right? So the purpose of child support is to get that other parent to support the child, at least financially, even though you can't physically be there because the relationship's broken up. So it's harder for you to physically be there. So when people say, oh, well, the man or maybe the woman or whatever is not around, and they're still doing their legal duty by actually providing that child support financially, it's very tough because you've broken up. The one parent is going to have that bitter and resentment, and then they're going to use the excuse like, well, you're never around. Well, that's because we broke up, we decided it wouldn't work, and one parent might be uncooperative as to the other. So we never hear both sides. All we hear is, oh, there's no reason for you not to be near the child. Absolutely, you should move mountains, you should do the impossible to get to your child. But the thing is, you don't want to endanger your livelihood just to try to make that visitation. Like if the person's just like, no, I'm not going to let you, and they have all that control, it's a very difficult situation to put a parent in. So I think people fail to underestimate that, because I've seen that in my life where a parent is trying to actually see the child and the other parent has resentment or bitterness or animosity towards that other parent. It makes it like a very stressful, more stressful than it needs to be. It's just like you just need to be cooperative. Oh, you came to pick up your son or daughter. Here you go. Thank you. Have them back by this time. Have those rules and guidelines and say, okay, cool. But some parents are very resentful and bitter, and like Sam says, it's typically the mother who has the custody and the father that doesn't. Typically, it's not always the case, but that's typically what happens. And then what typically also happens is that the mother says, well, I'm watching him or her. You're not doing that part, even though the father may be even following the parental guidelines in the child support plan by actually paying the child support. But that's not enough to them. They want more. So even in 50 Cent's case, like he was paying and doing his duty, but the mother wanted more. She wanted more child support. That's what he was saying in like his response video to Marquise. And sometimes it's like when you're having those disagreements and there's animosity, of course the father or the other party doesn't want to give more, and the other party wants to give more. So, and the only people that suffer when the parents have that conflict is the child. And we see that here with Marquise. He has, it seems like he's taking in a lot of that resentment and bitterness the baby mother has, and projecting that onto 50 Cent because he's 25 years old, talking about child support payments and like it wasn't enough, my father wasn't around, et cetera, et cetera. But you also have to look at the other side of the coin here. What about your mother? What was she doing? Did she make the situation easier, make the situation, possible for him to be around? What was her shortcoming? All we hear is like, oh, the man's fault, man's fault. In this case, 50 Cent's fault, 50 Cent's fault. But we're not hearing what was she doing, right? What was she contributing besides watching him when she could afford a nanny. She could afford daycare. Like in some cases, if a guy's giving you enough money, you can afford daycare. So it's like that kind of helps the whole watching aspect. But what are you doing financially, right? So everybody's always talking about, oh, well, your presence isn't around, but what is the other party doing financially just to, have that debate? Like, you can't always just blame one party and not look at the other party what they're doing wrong as well.
So I was gonna
And yeah,
say,
I think um,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think when we look at this, you have to look at all parties involved, right? Because no one's ever really like absorbed their innocence a lot of times. Um, while we agree, money doesn't equate to time, and experiences with. We can also agree that there's no sense of entitlement that can be owed in the sense of just because the person that you have a child with necessarily is going to guarantee promise you a certain quality of life that you may feel like you deserve, whether the courts feel like they deserve or that person who shares that child with you feel like that you guys should have. So I think there's some sense of that may have been there with the mother who may have felt like, hey, she should live a lifestyle that she lived. And I don't know what she did and how much she may have added to that and contributed. So I'm not in that household. Can't really speak to that. But I do know that we can see though there had to be some things that wasn't worked out. And I think, instead of Marquise going against the person who he may felt like was there in a sense with them and time wise, he feels like he didn't receive some of the other things, even though he received it monetarily. And so for that, we're able to sit there and say, I definitely think that it was, um, some entitlement on her behalf. And then as far as on Marquise's behalf, we're still hearing it now with him being 25 and feeling like, things didn't go the way he may have wanted it to go. And that to me is something that, is sad because as I stated earlier in this show, like it's people have to take their own responsibility for their lives eventually at some point, no matter if you had a good upbringing, no matter if you had a bad one. Like it's still your job to make sure that the things that you're looking to do can come out of there. And while you may have other factors that can help, parents, scholarships, things of that nature, it's still very important that you understand that a lot of it will be driven off of your focus, your dedication, your discipline to that. So giving that understanding, I feel like that's a part that Marquise hasn't gotten. And I'm sure that his dad understands. Like, you're not focused on anything. Because if there was things that he may have been working on and he was doing and he was in his own lane, he wouldn't be concerned about looking in the backfield and looking behind him. He'd be concerned on focusing on trying to continually make his dreams come true. And unfortunately, he's trying to make, the past change. And that's something no matter how much you wish, it's not going to happen.
So what I was going to say was, just real quick, I want to try to look at this from a different way. I mean, from a different lens, right? Look at this whole situation from the eyes of Marquise, right? Never mind his mom, never mind anybody else. You have a guy who grew up living probably like a middle class lifestyle, right? And his father is like one of the biggest artists in the world, making all kinds of money, millions. Your father's a millionaire and you grow up in a middle class lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? And so I think probably in Marquise's mind, he's looking at it like, but I'm his child. So if anybody gets to feel entitled, it's me because I'm his. I didn't ask to be here. And he knew that he couldn't be here with me physically all the time because he was out there getting that money, getting to that bag, that he needs to compensate for it. And $6,700 a month is not enough, especially too when you look at other children who are children of celebrities. And when I say children, I don't mean babies, I mean young adults. But it could go back to that childhood. Like, how are you 50 Cent's son and you don't even have a car or you only drive a Honda? I ain't knocking none of that, right? I'm not knocking whether or not somebody has a car, they drive a Honda, or anything like that. There's no shade. But the expectation from outside on the child of that celebrity growing up also has the ability to have an effect on that child's opinion as they get older, including Marquise. People could have possibly been looking at him a particular way because he, in fact, wasn't receiving the benefits that other people believed that he should have received. Not recognizing that.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm
Hold
sorry. Go ahead
on.
when you
Not
get done. I got something when
recognizing,
you're ready.
yeah, um, not recognizing the fact that everybody's situation is different, right? And if you go to court, court is going to say what it is. Because if you don't go to court, then you have the ability to dictate that. You see what I'm saying? And people do that all the time. They have their own agreements without court. And if you're able to come to some sort of an agreement, because remember, we have to keep these two things separate. And a lot of time people conflate the two. There's child support, which is financial, and then there's visitation, which is physical visitation. A lot of times a parent will withhold the child like they're a piece of property from the other parent in order to receive more money. And the thing about that is you're not supposed to do that. You are supposed to allow your child to go follow that visitation plan, regardless if that other parent is not paying that child support, which is why a parent can still lose their freedom, lose their license, and all that other stuff if in fact they're not paying their child support. And as long as you still allow you follow that visitation plan, you have clean hands. But when you don't, it's like, come on now, y'all going tit for tat. You got to stop it. You got to knock it off. You see what I'm saying? And so you got to cut it out. And so that's how we.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna have to
That's how
disagree
we.
a little bit on that.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just saying that it's not to say that I agree. It's to say that I think that that's just a different way of looking at it.
And I think that you brought some good points, but like some of them I feel like are ones that we need to discuss as well in this conversation, and that's the outside expectation of self or of a person, right? Because you made a good point. Like he may look around and see, how other people may be, and then look to himself. And I'm gonna start with, looking at some celebrity fathers that we've seen or entertainers who had children. We got Ice Cube and his son, you know what I'm saying? And his son does some acting and stuff. We had who else? We had Master P, his son, and Little Romeo.
Yeah,
we got our shows and
you have Will Smith's kids.
You have Will Smith's kids as well. They got on and did their thing and some things. What else? We had I think
there's a bunch of people.
A couple more that I was on
there.
there.
There's a bunch. Like remember that whole reality TV show?
Yep, the love. Excuse me. It was like growing up hip hop. That was one. So yeah, I definitely think that we've seen some people's children be able to kind of capitalize or leverage rather that relationship that they have with the parent into an extension almost like of what the parent was doing. And I don't necessarily know if Marquise didn't have the mindset to understand that was available to him, or if he didn't. And I think we've also seen it on the other side. We've seen, I don't know if y'all watched whose documentary it was. It might have been one of the story on Whitney or somebody, but Bobby Brown talked about it, like, how he was living and he had his child coming up. You know what I'm saying? And the type of parent he was, early on, how different they may have been. So, we do know that, there's some good examples of fathers and kids being able to leverage those relationships. And there's some that unfortunately have to just live with those expectations on the outside and being their reality. But I definitely think that when we look at it all, though, we can say to ourselves, hey, again, it's something that I think that needs to be internalized within you. And again, if we got Puffy and his kids, you know what I'm saying? They also do well in finding ways to find ventures to get on. Like, we got to look at it as like, maybe if that child may not be doing the things either that maybe the parent may want, and therefore those doors aren't open for them, or they just don't have the type of, what we look like, we can see here, mindset to take those opportunities and run with them. Because, it seems like some take advantage of them and some don't. I said, I don't know what that may be within the two of them. But I definitely want to reference that real quick. And I think that, that brings up some of the things that we were going to discuss as well, as far as like the changing of the culture, with thoughts of everybody doing these things outside and doing these things, you know what I'm saying, dealing with the pressures of, society or expectations. What do you think that we can do to change that? And one of the things that I was going to say is, one, learn to, as they say, it's an old cliche, but stay in your lane. Like, learn what's cool with you, what you like, do what you do, and understand that you gonna have your people. It's funny we talk about this, but in today's society, we see people identify as whatever they want to identify as. So, they running in whatever lane it is that they want, and they expect people to kind of respect them as such, whether it's like you said, cat, dog, or whatever they identify themselves as. And so I feel like that should mean the most, that if you just be true to who you are and what you are, you know what I'm saying, and stay in that realm, you will find your people, you will find your tribe, you will find your village, and however many people that they live in there, if it's the right type of fit for you, it will work, and you will see fruit from that bear from that,
Yeah,
and I believe that to be so.
yeah, I was gonna say something with the culture change, something that help would be, trying to really stress the importance of having, the mother and father in the household, because we're seeing like especially when you have sons, right? When you see, the absent father, and then that mother has that bitterness and resentment, that she projects that onto the children. So that one parent will project to the children, and all the children hear is that one side. They don't get to hear the other side, especially when there's little to no visitation, or if you're busy, like 50 Cent was. So that child's like, oh, you're never around. Oh, you never come to my games. You never come to my activities that I do. You're never around. There's always mom watching me, et cetera, et cetera. So I think if Marquise situation, 50 Cent had custody, or if he was around more, he wouldn't be talking like this. Like 6,700 isn't enough. I needed more than that to just survive. 6,700 is just surviving. He's talking like an entitled brat. And I think if 50 Cent had custody, he wouldn't be talking like that. Because number one, 50 Cent said, he would have gave him more money. But the mother wanted more money, but it was agreed upon with that amount. So that's one of the culture changes I think can help, if we really stress the importance and make it a big priority that we have these co-parenting households, people being together, co-parenting, stressing that, instead of, oh, here's this child support and you get visitation, but really try to harp on the importance of the co-parenting.
Yeah. What I was going to say was, the co-parenting is absolutely important. Like you said, when you have one parent who may be deliberately withholding that child from the other parent and asking for money, just, using that child as a bargaining chip, that ain't cool, because we're talking about relationships that people need in order to grow to be healthy individuals. It's not to say that people do not grow to be healthy individuals if a parent is not around for whatever reason, whether they're absentee, whether the other parent is withholding them, or maybe they passed away, they're sick. There's a lot of different reasons. Maybe they're in jail, whatever the reason is, it's not to say that somebody can't be grow to be a healthy member of society. It's just to say that when you grow up in a healthy two-parent household, things are different for you, right? And so I think that when you're talking about cultural changes, I think one of the other things that need to happen, so, like, social media plays a role in a lot of things, right? And so if you have not even just social media, just media in general, like when you look at the television and you see certain shows, sometimes a parent is missing, right? And oftentimes you see that in Black families. And so that's why it was incredibly important to see like a two-parent household a two-parent household on television because you said with Black family, because you almost never see a one-parent household, a single-parent household with a white family. You almost always see, when you do see it, it's always with the Black family. And I think that we also have to be mindful about changing that, right? Because what you see is eventually who you can become. It doesn't mean you will, but you can, especially when there's no other outside influences. And when you look at social media, the reason why I brought up social media is because, a lot of times people are impressioned by the things that they see on social media. It doesn't mean that everybody is impressionable and everybody just, because things happen, right? Sometimes people can't get along and they're able to co-parent well, and that they try to do what they can to take proper care of that child. But when you have people out here just utilizing bitterness and all that, it's not right. It's not cool. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said before, children don't ask to be here, and it's not right to treat a child like it's a bargaining chip just so you can get what you want because you in your feelings, man or woman, you know? And so I think that as it relates to some of those cultural changes, aside from the fact that, we got to make sure that parents are present for their children, so long as there's nothing wrong with that parent in a sense with that they can cause that child some severe harm. Like if they're like abusive or anything like that, like Malik was just saying, then nah, they can stay gone. It's all right. Yo-yo parents, the ones that bounce in and bounce out, and it really takes a toll on that kid, right? It's one thing if you have a parent that's busy and you can see that they're busy. It's something totally different when you just don't know what's going on. And like when 50 made the argument, look, if he had been with me, he would have got 500 as opposed to the 6,700. The reason why Marquise wasn't with 50 is because more than likely his baby mom said no. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you kind of cut off your nose to spite your face. Here it is, this man wants to support his child and have his child with him all the time and give him more, but you're not allowing it to happen. So if you don't allow it to happen, you end up getting limited. And I think that it's important to recognize that kind of thing. And so in closing, my final thought about the whole Marquise Jackson and Curtis Jackson situation is Marquise needs to let it go, right? I don't care if he go to therapy. I don't care what he got going on. I get where he may be coming from, but at the age of 25, it just is ridiculous. It's what I said from the beginning, and I still feel the same way. I think that it's ridiculous to be sitting there complaining about how your father may or may not have given you enough money when that money is more than most people make, especially in that time, right? More than most people make. It's like an upper middle class type salary you were getting as child support, whereas most people don't get that. So I think that it's important to recognize that Marquise got to relax. And I get where 50 is coming from, and he had to, and I'm sorry, he had to troll his son, but he had to troll his son because his son was trolling him. So it's like, I guess that's where he gets it from his dad, the trolling. But it's like it's a useless waste of time, and it's a useless waste of energy to hold on to that type of stuff. So in conclusion, I think that maybe in order to avoid these types of things happening with other people, even if it's not that much money, make sure you get your kid therapy, right? Because we are staunch advocates for therapy over here. Maybe you need therapy, as a parent, no matter which side of the coin that you're on, so that you can be a healthy parent. Another thing that you can do is try to find mentors or other types of role models, positive role models that can help you to help guide your child, especially when there's another absentee parent. So I think that those are some of the ways in which, you can try to help mitigate or minimize these types of situations. So those are my closing thoughts, and I'm gonna pass it on over to my co-host.
Yeah, so and finally, in that whole situation, like you just said, I think we want to say one of the times that I normally say this towards the end, but this is only fitting for this show that I go ahead and hit us with the motivational minute, rather. And it is a quote from 50 Cent, which says, this is also my final words. Speed this on up for us today. Have a baby by me, baby. Be a millionaire. And so, you know what I'm saying? I think we all must remember these things, because if you don't know where you coming from, where will you go, as they say? And so, you know, he had to look at that, realize, like, you know, put that call out to women after he, you know what I mean, got that battle up off him, and dropped a banger one time, just for people to say, for those guys who out here feeling like, you know what, don't make the best of your life, the rest of your life, the best of your life when you run into them, you know, for those type of steppers, you know. But yeah, no, I think that's definitely what I'm gonna go with for the motivational minute this week, and somewhat of the end of the conversation, because I think if you can see, I'm not gonna say that money necessarily means that you're doing something right, even though it does in some senses. Whether it's right for the right reasons or right for the wrong reasons, you know what I'm saying? There's some people who take money for things that maybe they don't feel like are moral, or there's some people that do things, you know, where they bring down a culture with what they do, but you know, they take the money and they feel like, hey, they're doing whatever it is that needs to be done to gatekeep, to, you know what I'm saying, send confusion, to do all of those other things that we see occur in today, to help prevent for the advancement of the community. But I want to say our Black business of the month this month has been the Hungry Black Man. You can catch them on Instagram. They're always promoting local eateries all around the nation. So whenever you're traveling, you're out for a foodie, check that out. And then our book of the month this month is by Takashi Coates, and it's Between the World and Me. Pardon me, Between the World and Me. I forgot to mention that. I also realized the other day HBO did a documentary, so anybody who has access to HBO, you can see they did like a mini series that discussed some of the book and the novelties that were discussed within it, and some of the gems that the Arthur portrayed within that storyline. So definitely want to go ahead and lay that. I wanted to let you guys know y'all can catch us again every week on YouTube. You know, you can catch us during the week on Instagram around 8:30 for What's Up Wednesdays, where we just kind of do an informal conversation on either what's going on or, you know, game night. It could just be, you know, current events, you know, politics, whatever you may see. So yeah, in that time, I guess I'll let you guys, anybody else got anything else to say? If not, we can go ahead and shop. You'll see our social media is posted at the end of this. And we want to thank you guys for coming. Oh, you want rapping? And yeah, we'll hit y'all next time.
Yeah, I just have one thing to add. If you guys have a topic that you'd like for us to talk about, please feel free to go ahead and reach out to us. Let us know. We'll go ahead and we'll talk about it. Other than that, make sure you go ahead and check us out on our social media and on YouTube, which you're probably watching here. Like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend to tell a friend. Other than that, that's all I got. You got anything else, Malik?
No, thank you guys for watching us. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, if you want us to talk about different topics, just let us know. You can shoot us a DM, email, just contact us on our social media handles, and we'll get back to you.
All right, y'all, be good to each other.
All right, guys. Peace.
All right, peace.